All right, guys. So this testimony right here from Miss Lucretia Hughes in Congress is one of the most powerful testimonies I've ever heard in my life. Okay. And the reason why is because this mother lost her son to what they call gun violence. Her son was shot point blank in the head by a criminal with an illegal gun. And she's come to Congress to testify against the Democrats' effort for gun control because she wants to protect herself. And she demolishes the Democrats' talking points on gun control one by one while also proposing common sense solutions to the violence that we're seeing that's going on here in the inner cities. Again, this testimony right here, guys, one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. Okay, I mean, it really kind of shook me at my soul, right? I get goosebumps listening to it. Okay, this woman has went through a whole lot, and throughout all that, she came to the conclusion that, hey, I cannot depend on the government. I rarely can't depend on the Democrats, and I want to protect myself. I want to protect myself. Okay. So that is basically the gist of what she's going to say here. And again, I just found it to be very, very, very powerful. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Distinguished members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to be here today to address the violence in our country. My name is Lucretia Hughes Klukin. I have 4 children and 9 grandchildren. On the night of April the 2nd, 2016, my family got a phone call that would change our lives forever. My ex-husband answered the phone and let out a blood-curdling scream, a scream of pain from the depths of his soul. He screamed, he cried, he's gone, he is gone. Our 19-year-old son, Emmanuel, went to a party early that night. After we got the call, we was frantic. We called his phone, no one answered. We called even the police. I went to Facebook and I had to ask, is my son dead? I found out that he was shot point blank in the head and killed while playing dominoes. No one spoke up for weeks, and the killer was on the run. No one was going to snitch.
Huge problem. Huge problem in the black community. People talk about solutions. What are some of the problems in the black community? Why is crime so rampant? Why are criminals getting away with it? Well, it ain't just the Democrats and their policies. A lot of it is them letting criminals off. But it's the fact that people in their communities don't speak up against the people that are terrorizing those communities. They don't say anything. The whole no snitching thing is probably the most detrimental aspect of the black community. Some of these inner city neighborhoods, put it that way. Okay?
But that is the street life. Words can't describe how hard it is to bury a child. I ache for anyone and all who have done the same. My son's death was a result of a criminal with an evil heart and a justice system failing to hold him accountable for the laws he had already broken.
Facts.
You see, a convicted felon killed my son with an illegally obtained gun. Our gun control lobbyists and politicians claim that their policies will save lives and reduce violence. Well, those policies did not save my son.
Facts. Look at this woman back here in the background. She feel the same way I feel right now. Just listen to this. Right? She's saying, look, my son was killed by a criminal who obtained a gun illegally, despite the Democrats' laws in place. He obtained a gun illegally and killed my son. Again, this guy was a felon. Somebody that probably should have been locked up. Shouldn't be on the streets in the first place. But because the Democrats, again, are soft on crime, this is who they allow to terrorize these cities. And it's much worse today than it was back in 2016. So, again, you know, people who are actually going through this stuff, who are experiencing this stuff, not the woke white liberals that are pushing this stuff on black folks, but the actual black folks in these communities know exactly what the problem is. They know exactly what the issue is. It's the criminals. That is the issue.
The laws being discussed are already implemented in cities across this country. We have decades of evidence proving they do not work. St. Louis, New York, Chicago, Washington, Atlanta are gun control utopias, and they are plagued with the most violence. 10 more laws, 20 more laws, 1,000 more won't make what has already illegal more wrong or stop criminals from committing these crimes. And y'all are delusional if you think it's gonna keep us safe. I am a walking testimony of how the criminal justice system and the gun control laws, which is steeped in racism, by the way, have failed the black community.
Well, Democrats don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that gun control laws are racist, which, hey, historically speaking, Democrats have been all about gun control for black folks, right? And they still about that to a certain extent, except the criminals. They like when the criminals get the guns. They don't like when law-abiding citizens have the guns, though. Again, these Democrats, man, they are so detrimental. And I'm glad that people are waking up to this stuff and they're seeing how toxic these policies actually are, how toxic the agenda is.
By the age of 25, I had already went to 18 young black men funeral at the age of 25. I have one black man in jail, one black man in the grave, and my young grandson gonna be raised without a father. And it's a curse on the black community and everyone else's. Something has to change. Thoughts and prayers and calls for more gun control isn't enough. How about letting me defend myself from evil?
Facts.
You don't think that I'm capable and trustworthy to handle a firearm? You don't think that the Second Amendment doesn't apply to people that look like me?
No, they don't. Historically speaking, no, they don't. I mean, Democrats been trying to restrict guns for black folks since the Civil War ended, right? Since the Civil War ended, they've been trying to restrict guns for black folks. They actually don't think that. They don't. They don't want you to have guns. Except the criminals. They're totally fine with the criminals having them.
Who and you who would call for more gun controls are the same ones that are calling to defund the police. Who is supposed to protect us? We must prepare to be our own first responders to protect ourselves and our loved ones.
Well, that requires independence, right? And the Democrats don't want black people to be independent from them, right? Again, the agenda is simply to make a certain group of people dependent on Democrats so that Democrats continue to always get votes, right? Disarming people is the easiest and fastest way to be able to control people, right? That's how you create a police state. Disarm the citizens and you can do whatever you want, right? You can impose whatever type of authoritarian, totalitarian regime that you want, right? Just look at what happened in Australia. Look at what happened in Canada. I'm just saying, that's not the type of country that I want to live in. And I truly believe the only thing that kept the U.S. government and the Democrats from going as far as, again, the governments of Canada and Australia did during the pandemic when it comes to imposing lockdowns on their citizens and mandates on their citizens is because of gun owners, right? Because they know that, a lot of the citizenry are armed, right? And that kept them from going further, okay? Because they definitely wanted to go a lot further. But again, they knew that, okay, we push too much, we might actually have armed resistance, and we really don't want to deal with that. So it's important to continue to have that as a means of disincentivizing the government from going too far. But they definitely will try. And the Democrats tried during the pandemic. We all witnessed it.
I am a legal, law-abiding citizen, and I don't need the government to save me.
Facts. But again, law-abiding citizens are the most disrespected people in this society. The most disrespected. Democrats do not care about law-abiding citizens. Nobody cares about law-abiding citizens. Who the Democrats care about are the woke revolutionary protesters, right? The far leftists and the criminals. That is who they're catering to. The extremists in their party.
I teach people how to use a firearm. I empower others to look at me to understand the Second Amendment is their right. I am a proud member of the DC Project, Women for Gun Rights, we believe that education is the key to safety, not ineffective legislation. We support meaningful solutions that will actually save lives. We support the Safe Student Act, H.R. 7415, which would immediately make schools safer. In hindsight, at Parkland, we saw failure of the government at every level failing the students. Students saw something and they said something, and the school did not act. Police were called to his residence over 30 times, and they did not act. And finally, the police did not go into their school that fateful day and failed to protect those kids. We need to secure our schools, and we gotta secure this building, or like y'all do. What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that politicians care about their own lives. And when it comes to these mass shootings, it's politically good for the Democrats because despite the fact, kids are dying, they can use that as a way to smear people like her, law-abiding gun owners, Republicans, the NRA. They blame everybody except themselves, but yet they don't want to pass bills to harden schools or to have schools be more armed with good guys, right, with guns. And we know for a fact that works. I just did a story yesterday about how an elementary school down in Alabama, a guy was trying to break into the school. The school was locked, okay, like it should have been. It was locked. And because it was locked, the police officer had time to get out there and to confront the man, and ultimately ended up having to kill the man because the man tried to take the officer's gun and tried to confront the officer, right? That is what's supposed to happen when you have proper security protocols in place. Democrats and their gun control agenda is not going to stop crazy people from trying to commit crazy acts of violence at these schools. They're still going to have access to guns. Only thing Democrats are doing is saying, well, we just want less good guys with guns and we'll let all the criminals have the guns. And they don't want to put forth any solutions that are actually going to save lives and are going to actually make these schools safer because, again, it's not politically convenient for them. They love when mass shootings happen because it's one of those times in which they can stand up and they can virtue signal. But they will never, ever, ever pass solutions that are going to help because ultimately, in the day, arming schools and having better school safety protocol is something that you should do regardless of what you do on gun control. Even if you get what you want on gun control, you should still have that in place. Democrats say no. Well, why is that? Because they don't want schools to be safer. I'm telling you, it's a hideous agenda, but that's how politics works sometimes. It's better just to not solve a problem and to blame the other side rather than to solve the problem because at that point, you lose that as a talking point. You lose that as something that you can use to blame the other side and to try to get votes. It's effed up, but that is the way a lot of our politics works. That's why you don't see problems get solved because it's just not politically convenient to solve problems. It's just better not to solve those problems and just blame the other side for why those problems aren't being solved. That's just how it goes.
We call on Congress to ban gun-free zones.
Facts.
Fund nonpartisan firearm education programs like Kids Safe Foundation and non-governmental mental health organizations like Hold My Guns. And in closing, I claim that nothing in these bills do anything to make us safer or address the mental health crisis in this country. Despite living with the heartache of losing my son on a daily basis, I believe it is our God-given right to defend ourselves from any act of violence, making it more difficult or even more expensive for me and people that look like me and other law-abiding citizens will not make us safer. It will embolden the criminals. Gun owners are not the enemies, and these gun control policies are not the solution. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you all for your powerful and meaningful and gut-wrenching testimony.
Yeah, what can you say in response to that? What can you say in response to that? Right? She's somebody that lost her kid to so-called gun violence, okay? She lost her kid to a criminal with a gun, okay? And she comes out here and says, no, I want to protect myself. I need to have a gun because I want to be able to protect myself against the criminal. I don't want to depend on the government to try to protect me from the criminal, because it's been proven that the government can't do that, right? The government is not going to keep that criminal from getting that firearm that he obtained illegally. And at the end of the day, the police weren't there to save my son either. So I'd much rather be armed or have my family members be armed to protect themselves and to save themselves than to be dependent on the government. But again, the Democrats want you dependent on the government. That's what they want. That's what a whole lot of this stuff is kind of about. It's keeping people dependent, right? Keeping them unarmed, defunding the police, letting criminals run the neighborhoods, keeping them poor, right? Then they can just turn around and blame systemic racism and say, well, the Republicans are racist. So that's your problem, right? It's the Republicans' fault. It's the white man's fault. So again, that testimony was super powerful. I got goosebumps, right? Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.